chemistry problem. The giant was left speechless. He was not equipped to discuss chemistry or any other cognitive subject. It seems to me that President Bush is a bully and has us in a buzzsaw. If he continues his race signals and sinister plots, from Willie Horton to quotas to the Supreme Court nominee, if we do nothing, we are humiliated. If we spend all of our energy on it, we martyr him. His loyal and frightened followers assume that if we are upset, he must be doing something right. Above all, there will be no energy left for us to deal with our daily and fundamental needs. And so I shall attempt today to do a difficult thing, to put in perspective this matter of racial justice and the need for a broad plan for a new economic chemistry for the nation. President Bush, like the bully, has a strategy for debate, for racial debate. We must have a 10-year plan of our own and a vision for the nation and set the agenda for 1992. At stake is not merely individual policies, but the priorities of a nation. We must take the focus off of who we want or do not want and put it on what we want for our future. The real needs of the nation are not even on the table. They're not even up for debate. We need a discussion of how to reinvest in our nation, how to revitalize urban and rural America. We need a 10-year plan to bail out our cities and educate our children. Across the nation, we're seeing the destructive effects of a decade of Reagan-Bush policies. Here in Texas, we're witnessing the worst of the savings and loans scandal, the mother of all corruption, which is costing $6,000 per American citizen. Bush does not want to discuss the Resolutions Trust Corporation, the ROTC, controlling hundreds of billions of dollars of taxpayers' money. It's not only in disarray, but it is not fulfilling its obligation to fairness. There's a thing called SAMDA, Management Disposition of Assets. This is Bush's affirmative action plan. $455 million let in contracts. White males, 288 million, 63.2%. White females, 135 million, 30%. Some of whom are married to the white males. And some of the companies that were ruled ineligible circumvented legislation with regulations. White Indian females, 12 million or 2.7%, interesting category. White Hispanic females nationally, 2.4%. In Texas, 0%. Black females, 0%. Black males, 7 million or 1.7%. Then they ask, what is happening to the black family? We should not watch quietly as we're locked out on the front side and then cut out of the bailout on the back side. We should be marching on the sites of management assets around the nation, starting in Texas, and demanding our fair share. They want to discuss Bush's nominee. We want to also discuss our share of contracts for lawyers, accountants, asset managers, and options for our youth. Housing, a crisis of national scope, has hit Texas hard. Nationwide, there are 2 low-income families waiting for every unit of affordable housing. Here, fancy high-rise office buildings stand empty right here in Houston. The SNLs designed to create affordable housing are being sold off to the friends of the perpetrators of the scandal. All that deregulation really meant was to open up the vaults, let the friends and relatives steal, and then fire the guards because they were unionized. No, we're going to step out of the buzzsaw this morning. Environment. Here in Texas, the heart of oil country, the citizens and workers are paying for petrochemical prosperity with their lives. Tomorrow we're going to Midland, Odessa, Texas, where the emission of a tire plant is threatening the health of the community and the jobs of the workers. Let's discuss Connecticut. Not Mississippi, not Alabama, not Georgia, not Willa Horton, not Clarence Thomas. Let's discuss for a minute Connecticut, Mr. Bush's real home state, where his relatives live. I always have a certain deference for South Carolina because I was born there and my mother lives there. I'm always interested in South Carolina news. Now, let's talk about Connecticut, Mr. Bush's real home state, not his address, his real home state. The nation has pressing needs. Connecticut has become an emblem of the economic plight of the nation. Bridgeport has declared bankruptcy, the first city to do so. Connecticut, the richest state in the nation, with the highest per capita income, has 3 of the poorest cities of the top 10 in the nation. Connecticut has the highest rate of pediatric age in the country. New Haven leads the nation in low birth weight babies. 1/3 of the children live in poverty. Connecticut ranks highest in the nation in murder, poverty, and infant mortality. Yet Connecticut ranks 4th in the nation in the number of millionaires per capita. It is the home of many of the Fortune 500 CEOs because its citizens commute to New York City and do not pay fair taxes there. The inner city of New York is subsidizing the suburbs of Connecticut. Dave Dinkins is bearing the burden of the wealthy in Connecticut. Connecticut, Bush's real home state. Yet, he won't even call Bridgeport's Republican mayor to respond to her distress because he is afraid to focus on the real issues of economic need. He called the ball players after the Super Bowl game. He called Joe DiMaggio and Ted Williams talking about 1941. But he would not call the mayor of Bridgeport, Connecticut, and discuss the stress for urban America in his own home state. The issue in Connecticut is not quotas. It's not reverse discrimination. It's not welfare queens. It's the need for a new American agenda. A 10-year plan for renewal and reinvestment shared by the entire nation. Bridgeport is not an anomaly. The League of Cities just reported that 1 in 4 cities are in default, a deficit. 1/4 of urban America potential Bridgeports. 75% cut to urban America in the last 10 years. We need a plan to rebuild America. Leaders come from all around the world for a bailout plan for their states and for their countries. And while Bush sidetracks us on another race bone, civil rights veto threat, welfare queen, Willie Horton, Clarence Thomas, and gives us a bone and take all of our energies on the race bone, they come to Washington looking for a formula. Long-term aid, trade, loans, grants, debt forgiveness, development, and security. We need such a formula. If we can bail out Europe and Japan and make them 50-year loans at 2% government secured, I mean, you would have to be a genius to fail with a 50-year loan, 2% government secured. If we can bail out Europe and Japan, and now Eastern Europe, Yeltsin and the Russians, we can bail out America. We can reinvest in urban and rural America.
All right.
Our banks and savings and loans institutions in the community must be seen as development banks. We must draw green lines where the red lines have been and encourage investment where there has been disinvestment. We must support enterprise zones that have enterprise in them and benefit the people who live in them and provide the capital assistance needed to revitalize local communities. We need solutions that match the scale of the problems. First, fair taxes. The rich and the corporations must pay their fair share of the national burden. Fair taxes are just. They are mature public policy. Taxes are the way you fund your civilization. We can't pay off our debt with a Russian grant in rubles. We can't ask Britain or Japan to bail us out. We can't talk free enterprise and expect something for nothing. Civilized, matured people pay fair taxes. We need a national health care plan. There's a rise in tuberculosis, in measles, in AIDS. I visited the hospital here in Houston a few days ago. Prenatal care for 9 months will cost less than $1,000. Without prenatal care, low birth weight baby, $2,000 a day. If there's AIDS or some drug complication, $4,000 a day. If it's premature, it may be in the hospital 3 to 4 months. $500,000 We need a health care plan. We're paying $750 billion a year, the most expensive, the best science and technology, but further away from the people. 40 million have no health insurance. The poor have no health insurance. The insured have moderate, if it's not long-term illness. The rich have unlimited. Let's make sense here. Let's invest in prenatal care, Head Start, daycare. Bottom out. It makes more sense and it's cost efficient to invest in prenatal care and Head Start and daycare on the front side rather than jail care and welfare on the back side.
All right.
We cannot just react to Mr. Bush's privatized educational plan for the nation. He speaks of choice schools. In our democracy, all schools must be choice, and all children must be chosen. You can't spray the leaves top down. You got to water the roots bottom up. I mean, education must be prenatal care, Head Start, daycare, vocational education, and college options bottom up. Jackson, where the money gonna come from? Gonna come from where it went. That ain't difficult. A $600 billion tax cut in 1981 is left us with a $3 trillion debt, a $250 billion deficit, bankrupt cities, 41 states in deficit spending, 65 hospitals closed across urban America, schools closed, jails built. Where the money gonna come from? It gonna come from where it went. Let's think for a change. We have $2 trillion in private pension funds, $900 billion in public pension funds, the workers' money. We've used some pension funds without our consent to prop up South Africa. We had to withdraw from that. We've used workers' money to build up suburbs and to build buildings with workers' money that workers couldn't organize in. And they called that the big word, fiduciary responsibility. It was madness. Why can't we, the NAA, start a drive today to organize an American investment bank? Take 10% of public pension funds, which is $90 billion over 10 years, government secured, not a loan, not a grant, not a handout, workers' money, government secured, build an American investment bank like a domestic World Bank, use that money to do what S&Ls didn't do, build affordable housing, put workers back to work, and train our youth. We're going to come out the bar saw today. There's another way out. A GI Bill. Two months ago, that's all we could discuss. I still want to discuss the GIs. Because all this, we love the troops. That's appropriate. Some of us love the troops before they were troops. And we loved them while they were troops. We prayed to God for their safe return. And now we got to do a bigger thing. Love them when they're no longer troops. It ain't hard to love someone while you are in Yale and Harvard who volunteers to die for you. That ain't a hard sell. You look at that war, private school children didn't leave their high schools and private colleges and go to the war. It was basically public school youth, black, white, and brown, and foreign technology. The troops, if you love the troops, guarantee them the same health plan that the Congress has. If you love them. 535 members of Congress, only 4 had a child there. Executive branch, no children there, one of whom was a draft dodger. Judicial branch, no children there. Top Fortune 500 CEOs, no children there. So those who did go should at least get the same health plan the Congress has. Don't stop there. They should be guaranteed long-term, low-interest loans for housing. Don't stop there. Guarantee the child of every troop a college education. Put a yellow ribbon around that. If you love them, sign a 1991 Civil Rights Bill. If you love them. How can you look at a woman in the face who has flown combat missions? A woman who carried her rifles on her shoulders just as men did. A woman who dug holes in the desert sand. A woman who watched other women burn to a crisp with Scud missiles. A woman who left her babies home with neighbors, sometimes no husbands. How can you look that woman in the face, salute her, give her a purple heart, and then deny that woman equal rights amendment or comparable worth or parental leave? That's not fair. That's not just. Just as World War II veterans marched when they came back home from World War II, young Persian Gulf vets and Vietnam vets, along with NAACP, must lead a march on the White House demanding a signing of the 1991 Civil Rights Bill. I want y'all to bear with me. I prayed over this matter. Mr. Bush has raised the specter of race to divide the nation while neglecting real economic needs. The 1991 Civil Rights Bill is an economic opportunity bill designed to help women and workers, ethnic minorities, and physically disabled in the workplace. The chief lobbyist against the bill is not the Klan. It's a decoy. It's the National Association of Manufacturers and the Chamber of Commerce. Sometimes you can determine the content of a bill by who's lobbying for it. It's like you can determine Supreme Court nominees by who is lobbying for it. The president has labeled it a quota bill, painting it with a divisive brush of race. Indeed, when the business community wanted to come to the table and recognize its real interest in equitable workplaces, the Bush administration sabotaged the process. Bush campaigned, this is media double standards, he campaigned with Darrell Gates. 10 years ago, Mr. Darrell Gates, why don't you hire Hispanics to stay up there lazy? Mr. Darrell Gates, why are blacks down in police chokeholds? He said because they have abnormal necks. Mr. Darrell Gates accused the Soviet Jews of being KGB terrorists. Yet the press did not call on Bush to repudiate him as he did commercials with him in 1988. We saw the Rodney King beating March the 3rd, March the 6th. 3 days after it had been seen around the world, Mr. Bush invited Darrell Gates to the White House to unveil this crime package and singled him out as an American top cop hero. That was not in most of your papers. It's a fact. Not only the Gates a matter, he recommended Rice Camp for the federal bench. He was so racist until Hefner from Alabama led the charge against him on the basis of race. He was asked, why do you belong to an all-white country club? He said, well, nobody speaks Spanish there. What about dogs biting blacks in your district? He said, well, at least when they're bitten, their behavior changes. So a man who would embrace Gates without shame, recommend Rice Camp to the federal bench, use Willie Horton in 88, quotas in 91. We need to get rid of Darrell Gates in 91 and Mr. Bush in 92. We must put the race decoy in perspective. Challenge the president to debate economic chemistry. On this tenure since '88, we've lost 1 million jobs, Reagan and Bush 3 million. There's a lot of talk about whites being afraid. They are. And it's legitimate. Back up a minute. In the last 10 years, we've lost 800,000 family farmers, mostly white. They are afraid. We've lost 3 million manufacturing jobs, with them the tax bases. When those plants closed down, you lost black and brown workers and white managers